Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held discussions today on providing solutions for earthquakes in high-risk communities here in Israel. The discussion was ahead of a meeting on the Committee on Earthquake Preparedness slated to take place next week. The devastating earthquake in Turkey has served as a reminder of the need for preparedness in Israel, which lies in a fault zone. To that end, a refresher training was recently held for leaders and youth volunteers working with the disaster relief units, a project of the JNF UK to provide practical support in times of emergency in Israel. The DRU project currently has 11 trailers spread throughout the country that are fitted with resources such as communications equipment, water purifiers, and generators. The youth volunteers are trained to operate the units and also to work with local municipalities to meet any other needs that arise in an emergency situation, be it a security event or natural disaster. We heard more from Yonatan Galon, Executive Director of JNF UK.
We're calling it DRU, the Disaster Relief Unit. That's the name of the project, and it's a project that operated and initiated by JNF UK, the Jewish National Fund of United Kingdom. And generally, JNF UK working a lot in the south of Israel for the last 20 years, and unfortunately, in the last 15 years, we saw a lot of disasters that was mainly due to rocket attack on civilians' population, and we experienced this situation so many times in the last, again, 15 years, and we decided we need to do something about that. And again, we're talking about different disasters that can happen, and unfortunately, Israel is in a high risk for that. Again, if it's a rocket attack, if it's earthquake, and potentially there are other disasters that we can suffer. And then we initiated this project, the DRU, Disaster Relief Unit.
What exactly does it comprise?
Okay, so the Disaster Relief Unit is actually with a lot of investigation, and we try to see the gaps. So there are many gaps in this field of emergency, and again, we're talking about quite large-scale event of emergency. And actually, the project includes few elements. Element number one is the units themselves, which is actually yellow trailers, full with emergency equipment, which I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about what exactly it includes.
Sure.
And the other two elements, which are crucial, is the volunteers. We know that in time of emergency in Israel, we have hundreds or thousands of volunteers that want to help, but don't know where and what they can do. And in many cases, they don't have the means, they don't have the tools, they don't have what they need to volunteer with. So the other element is the volunteers. And the third element is the procedures and the process of how to operate all this manpower of volunteers and the tools and equipment that they have, and how to do it working very, very closely alongside the local authorities, that in the civilian population in cities and towns, they're actually in charge of the population and they give the first support. Of course, on top of the security forces, MADA, and all of that, and the police. But on top of that, the local authority is actually responsible to give the first support. And the units will be the second circle supporting the local authorities, again, in different kinds of emergencies or disaster situation.
So in the wake of the recent earthquakes in Turkey, Syria, and we've even had tremors here in Israel, was there any kind of refreshing or assessment going on with these units?
Yes, absolutely. So in principle, this is a project that quite recently we finished. We finished to build it and to plan it with, again, a lot of advice from professional people that unfortunately dealt with similar situation in Israel and all over the world. And actually, in principle, every year we have, at the moment, we have 11 units, and they are spread all over Israel. And the volunteers are actually a leadership program, which is normally people over 18 that doing a gap year program after high school. So this is the type of volunteer that we have, and they are ready for action. So every year they doing special training on this equipment and with the local authorities to be ready for, again, different kinds, including earthquakes.
These are Israeli youth or
yes,
youth from abroad, like those who are doing a national of service volunteer year or in the Mechinot?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. This is the kind of youth that we are working with. By the way, from all backgrounds. We're also working with a leadership group of Druze in the north. So we want to be able to give support in that kind of situation to all of the Israeli population, Jewish, Arabs, Haredi, secular. We're working with all of the population. And due to the recent event, we actually did like a special extra alert and assessment with all of the leaders of this program. And we checked and we spoke with the youth and we ran through different scenarios that potentially can happen if earthquake will take place in Israel. Not will, it's a question of when. So when earthquake will happen in Israel, what are the actions they need to be ready, what kind of support they can give, what kind of equipment they have, and how they should use it. So that's what we did quite recently.
And what is the equipment in the unit?
Okay, so the unit is full of equipment. Okay, it starts from, first of all, like they have a whole kit that they can build, like a whole hamal or like a control center, and work with the municipality to help manage that kind of situation. It includes a lot of emergency equipment like heating blankets, hundreds of heating blankets. Okay. Rescue equipment, various hand tools. They're not working with power tools because that you need much more training, but a lot of hand tools to be, again, the second circle of clearance and evacuation. For example, if there is a building that collapsed due to earthquake, so they will be the second circle that will give the support to the first response of the emergency forces. They have traffic diversion equipment, a lot of lights and electricity and generator, and they have a water supply system, so they can provide water to different places if they don't have water. They have evacuation kit to help elderly people and to evacuate them from a tall building. Obviously, there will not be electricity, so they have like special tools to help them to clear elderly people or disabled people and to help them to take them to wherever they need to go. So that's the kind of equipment that they have. They have walkie-talkies, satellite communication.
So in essence, the earthquake was a reminder for a refresher or another component, but it actually is for any emergency situation. And you mentioned before the security situation in the South. So how did it work when it was unfolded, when it was implemented on the ground? Did it work as expected?
So thank God, since we actually started the program, there was only one operation, which was happened about a year ago. And for example, in that operation, which again relatively wasn't like the full scale of disaster event, but in that emergency situation, some of the units went to different cities, for example, and helped clearing shelters. There was thousands of rockets that was shot towards Israel and towards different cities all over Israel, unfortunately. And we have volunteers that went, for example, to Kiryat Malachi. And there are many buildings that have like a public shelter. And in many cases, this shelter is not clear. It's full of old equipment and whatever. So they help them to clear the shelters and make them operational. We had a group of volunteers that run various activities for children. So the parents, which in many cases the parents have to go for their, they are essential worker. So we operate like nursery or babysitter services for doctors and nurses that have to be in hospital. So this is how it works in that kind of situation. But it very much depends. We have a whole procedure that's going on the various scenarios of different emergency situations and what this unit and these volunteers are allow and what they can do with the equipment that they have and with the training that they have.
Yonatan Galon of JNF UK.